Okay, guys, we're looking now at communism and socialism. The point of this, when we look at our lesson goal, is actually not to be able to describe these systems. It isn't to be able to define them or explain them. It is being able to identify them. And identify seems like it's much simpler. But in fact, you need to be able to do all of those other things. You need to be able to define what communism is to be able to pick it out. You need to be able to explain why it is communist and not another one to be able to identify. So identify is actually quite a higher order skill, and it will take you understanding the steps that lead to communism or lead to any system of government to be able to identify them properly, and then to be able to provide the evidence to someone else that you can do it. So we've got four key terms as always. We've got the working class, communism, socialism, and capitalism. So we're going to start with the working class. And the working class is a good place to start for us because they tend to be the ones that dictate which system of government we're going to be seeing in a nation. What the working class looks like and how they feel will decide a lot of things, because most of the nations we're talking about are democratic. They have the ability to change their system of government from being capitalist or socialist or communist. So wherever most of the workers are will determine that. And we say that the working class is separate from the dependents and the ruling class. So by that we mean dependents are children and the elderly, so people that depend on the people that can work to earn some money. Not that they don't have any value themselves, but those that are working generally are the ones that are voting and are providing for the economy. So these people from the working force are the majority of the population, and they also form what we call the workforce. So the working class is obviously the workforce. We learnt about the workforce earlier in year 9, but the workforce are those who are above the age of 18, willing and able to work. And these people are generally divided by either white collar or blue collar. These are terms you may have come across, but just to refresh your memory, a blue collar job is one which requires physical labor to create profit. So a blue collar job might be working at a port authority or building houses, or could be something to do with construction of various objects through engineering and things. While a white collar job is creating profit through thought, generally through the use of the mind. And when we talk about communism, socialism, and capitalism, whether a nation is blue collar or white collar is generally the big deciding factor. So whether the people are based around the working culture, that jobs that you do with your hands are very valuable, or whether they are based around the thought that jobs that you do with your mind are very valuable, will determine that system of government. So we'll start with communism. And I've taken this from Investopedia. They provide really good definitions for our year 10 level and provide little explanations as well. So I do like to use them occasionally. Communism, I've said and agree with Investopedia here, a system where the working class owns everything and everyone works towards the same communal goal. So it's like Bob the Builder. They're working together to get the job done. This system, the workers own the main state capital goods. So things to do with railways and roads and electricity providers and water providers. You're not paying for anything. Everything is owned by everyone in a pure form of communism. This was set up by a guy named Karl Marx. That's why I've got Marxism down the bottom there. But the issue with that system is that regardless of how much work you do, you will always be allocated the same amount of goods. So you could be the garbage man or the doctor or the prime minister, and you would still be allocated the same amount of goods. All are equal. You don't have to pay for anything, but you also aren't going to get anything extra. So provided everyone's okay with that and all working towards a communal goal, life is good. But once people start striving for more things, it starts to fall over. Now, Communism is generally supported by the blue collar, the working with the hands class, because these people in the past have felt hard done by the fact that the CEO of a company, who seems to sit in meetings all day and send off emails, gets paid 100 times more than the guy who works in the factory for 14 hours, sweating away building things. So the people who work with their hands feel as though their work is more noble and goes towards better things than those who just sit around drinking coffee and sitting in meetings. Now, we know that that's not what CEOs do. Possibly they do have to attend meetings and send emails, but they are being productive in that, and management does require intelligence and thought, as does physical labor. But this is where the thought of communism tends to stem from. Socialism's a step down. So socialism is similar there, but the individual, the worker who earns the money, after they've paid all their taxes, they can decide how they spend their final earnings. So in socialism, you would still have things like free healthcare and free education, like we do in Australia. But also, as we do in Australia, you would be able to decide how you'd spend your final earnings. Now, socialism is a level or a ranking. You can have lots of socialist ideals or not many. So in Australia, we're seen as being quite socialist by Americans, because we do have free healthcare and free education, and we have state-controlled ports and railways and public transport. But we're not totally socialist. Not every business is owned by the government. We can still have private things, and you can still make private purchases. You know, I can drive a different car to Mr. King. I can have the opportunity to purchase different clothes if I want to. So socialism is one of those steps in between communism and capitalism. And that's where we hit capitalism. Now, capitalism, once again, it's a level. You can have pure capitalism, where there's no government control, no government interference, we would call it. You can have the level that we have, which is a mixed economy where we have some capitalist ideas. So capitalism in its purest form says that a system where production is dictated by supply and demand and little interference, and that's little interference from government. So what we mean is the government doesn't put taxes on certain things. They allow shopkeepers to decide for themselves what price a product should be. And those shopkeepers are going to decide that in line with the laws of supply and demand. If more people want it, they might be able to charge a bit more. If there's not much of the product, they might be able to charge a bit more. If they've got lots of the product, they might be able to charge a bit less. So the government takes away the control aspect for that. And in some cases, that's really good. Maybe we can get a cheaper product, but also maybe we get a more expensive one. And this is where some people are wary of pure capitalism. Things like medications. Medications for treatment of various illnesses can cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars at their raw cost, but our government subsidizes that. They pay some of the cost for us. For some people, that's the only way that they're able to continue to live. And I think it would be an interesting debate as to whether we would remove all of those. A lot of people in a capitalist mindset don't like the fact that they need to pay for other people's healthcare. Why do my taxes go towards your surgery? And that is a fair statement to make, particularly for those that earn a lot more money or see themselves as working harder than other people, particularly when the job that they are employed in may not require the same physical strain as those that are getting injured frequently. And this is where we get the white-collar workers come in. They want the free market where their jobs aren't going to lead them to needing the government's resources. They have the money to be able to buy more things and enjoy them more and more. And this is where white-collar workers tend to lean towards capitalism. So the Liberal Party is more right-wing capitalism. The Labour Party is more left-wing socialism. Both are very central, but that is where they tend to sit. Now, there is a term there, laissez-faire, and I want you to research that for yourself. It does not just mean lazy. Laid back, possibly, but I want you to find out what that term means in reference to capitalism. So here's some practice tasks. The image on the left is referred to as a hammer and sickle. It is an international symbol of communism, as is the color red. I want to describe why you would use that to represent communism. Think about what those two tools are designed to do. There's one to build things and one to cut grass. Very hands-on elements. Think as well as to why you would use red. Red is often a color of passion and blood. Number 2, explain the difference between communism and socialism. And I've already described the difference, but I haven't explained the difference. Explain requires a chain of events, don't forget. So what led to communism coming about? What led to socialism? What is the impact of those two systems on the society? I didn't go into any of that detail. I only did the description of the difference. I want you to explain how each would impact upon the people differently. Number 3, evaluate whether Australia has a socialist or capitalist system of government. Well, I described it once again. I even explained some of it. But I want you to evaluate. I want you to come up with a list of arguments for and against and decide which one is more correct or whether they are both equally valid. You need to be able to back up your claim with evidence. At Year 10 level is vitally important. So here's your work for today. You need to read through the pages on Indonesia. Now you might be thinking Indonesia is not communist. Why are we looking at it in a communism lesson? Well, you're looking at it because the lesson goal is to identify a communist nation. I want you to look at Indonesia, find the steps that are looking towards communism and find the steps looking towards capitalism, find the steps looking towards socialism and make an informed decision on what they are. So that's why you're doing your reading on it. As always, find any definitions you don't understand. It's a foreign nation, and this is a fairly foreign course, so there will still be some. Questions 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7. 6 and 7 are vitally important where you actually construct a table comparing the two. That will come in very handy as your studies move forward. And also, as Indonesia is our nearest neighbour, it is respectful to understand something of their government structure and their nation. Lastly, create an opening paragraph for a speech on whether Australia should become more socialist or not. A speech is meant to be argumentative. Now, at your age, you're quite good at arguing. It would be good to see how you would convince someone of your opinion on this. So as always, if you have any other questions, make sure you ask your classroom teacher, send them a direct message, come along to tutoring. It's important, as I said, to understand how to identify these governments.